All right, let's talk about stretching. I mean, we all do it, right? Whether you're an athlete or you're just trying to get through a long day at your desk, stretching is the thing we do. It's supposed to warm us up, cool us down, get rid of those aches and pains. But what if I told you that the way most of us have been taught to stretch our entire lives is actually working against us? Let's dive in. Seriously, just take a second and think about that. We've always been told if a muscle is tight, just pull on it to make it longer. It seems so simple. But what if that whole idea is based on a huge misunderstanding of how our bodies actually function? Today, we're going to pull that idea apart. So, first things first, let's get on the same page. When I say stretching, what pops into your head? For most people, it's a pretty familiar routine, something we do without even thinking about it, and it probably looks a little something like this. Yeah, that's the one. The classic wrist stretch. You lock your arm out, you pull your hand back, and you just hold it there. We've all done some version of this, right? This whole method, just holding a muscle in a long position, that's what we call a static stretch. And the key word here is passive. You're just manually pulling on a muscle and waiting. That's it. This has been the absolute foundation of flexibility training in like every gym class and PE program forever. But here's the big question. Does just holding a muscle like that actually make it more flexible in any meaningful way? Well, let's see what the actual science says. Because when you start to put these common warm-up routines under the microscope, the results are, well, they're pretty surprising. Okay, so researchers got a bunch of young football players together and split them into groups. One group did foam rolling, another did dynamic stretching, like leg swings, and a third group did a mix of both. They wanted to see which method was the champ at increasing flexibility. And here are the results. Now, on the surface, it looks like every single warm-up helped a little bit. They could all reach a little further. But here's the catch. When the researchers actually compared the groups, there was no real statistical difference between any of them. Basically, it didn't really matter which warm-up they did. And here's the real kicker. The average improvement across all of those groups was less than 2 centimeters. That's it. So yeah, any warm-up helps a tiny bit, but the gains are so small you could barely see them on a ruler. So this leads to a really interesting question. If all the standard methods are only giving us these tiny little improvements, are we missing the bigger picture? Is there a better way to unlock our body's real potential for movement? Well, the answer, it turns out, is a huge yes. It's time to stop just yanking on our muscles and start using the most powerful tool we have for changing our body, which is, of course, our own nervous system. So let's compare the old way with a totally different approach. Over on the left, you've got your basic static stretching. It's passive. You're just pulling. But on the right, we have something called PNF stretching. This is an active process. You're not just pulling, you're actually using your own muscles to talk to your brain. PNF stands for proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. I know, it's a total mouthful, but the idea behind it is brilliant. It's a legit technique that physical therapists use all the time. And it basically taps into your body's own feedback loops to trick your muscles into letting go. So how does it actually work? Well, the most common way is called contract-relax. First, you go into a gentle, passive stretch. Then, and this is the magic part, you actively contract that same muscle you're stretching, pushing against something that won't move, like your partner's hand. After a few seconds, you totally relax, and whoa, you'll find you can suddenly go way deeper into the stretch. It's like you just gave your nervous system permission to chill out. So why does that little PNF trick work so incredibly well? To get that, we need to understand a couple of secret reflexes that are hardwired into our muscles, controlling everything they do. Think of it like this. You have 2 little sensors in your muscles. First, there's the muscle spindle. It's like your body's emergency brake. If it feels a muscle stretching too far or too fast, bam, it slams on the brakes and makes the muscle contract to keep it from tearing. But then you have the Golgi tendon organ, or GTO. It's more like a pressure valve. It senses tension, and when the tension gets too high, it tells the muscle to relax. PNF works because that big contraction you do, it activates the pressure valve, telling the muscle it's safe to let go. And this right here, this brings us to the biggest problem with old-school static stretching. When you just passively pull on a tight muscle, you're mainly setting off the muscle's spindle, that emergency brake. Your body's immediate reflex is to fight you, to contract even harder to protect itself. You're literally playing tug of war with your own reflexes. So with all this new info, we have to completely rethink our whole strategy. It's time to stop fighting against our bodies and start working with them.
let's just ask the question one more time. If our goal is to get a muscle to relax and get longer, but pulling on it sends a direct signal to the brain to make it contract and get shorter, then why on earth are we doing it? It seems totally backward, right? There has to be a more natural way. And it turns out there is, and it's something your body already does, automatically. It's called pandiculation. You've seen it a million times. It's when your cat does that big, long arch of its back after a nap. It's when you wake up and instinctively reach your arms overhead and have a massive yawn. That is pandiculation. It's your nervous system's built-in reset button for muscle tension.
This gives us a whole new way of looking at things. Stretching is a passive pull from the outside in. Pandiculation is an active, voluntary contraction from the inside out, followed by a slow, controlled release. Instead of picking a fight with your stretch reflex, it actually resets the control panel in your brain that's in charge of your muscle tension.
So, here's the big takeaway. Chronic tightness often isn't a problem in the muscle itself. It's a message from the brain telling the muscle to stay tight, and just pulling on that muscle doesn't change the message. If you want real, lasting change, you've got to send a new message. You've got to reset the system at the source, and that's the brain.
And that leaves us with one last, pretty big question to think about. We've seen how traditional stretching gives us tiny results and basically makes us fight our own body. And now we know about these amazing brain-first techniques that work with our nervous system. So maybe it really is time to stop stretching and start pandiculating? Maybe the next time you feel tight, the answer isn't to pull, but to contract, release, and reset.